The following program is brought to you in living color.
All right, hi, I'm Tony Figueroa, the Childhood Television, and this is another installment of This Week in TV History. You can read my blog at childhoodtelevision.blogspot.com, and that will appear at the bottom of the screen. And you can listen to me on TV Confidential, a radio talk show about television, where my good friend Ed Robertson and myself and my wife, Donna Figueroa, will talk about TV history, or we get to interview people who have made TV history. We got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. But today, this is really the first time I've had a guest via Zoom do this with me, and I am thrilled because I don't want to say an old friend, but she is a friend.
Watch it.
We've been friends for a while.
Yep.
And this is my friend Diane Vincent. Say hi, Diane.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Tony and I go way back.
We do go way back, and it's funny, we always talk about classic TV, or we talk about I Love Lucy especially, but it's always, did you see this documentary on CNN, or did you see this program, or did you see this retrospective? And it's like, we should actually just have this conversation and record it and make it an installment here.
Love it.
And the reason why I asked you, Diane, is because we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
And you have made part of your career being Lucy Ricardo.
Yeah, not for 70 years, though.
Not for 70 years, no.
But for a good long while, for 26 years and counting.
Whoa!
Yeah. I started in 95, and still going.
That is still amazing. That is, and it's...
That's a long time to be a Benjamin, isn't it?
So also, you don't poop out at parties.
I try not to poop out at days.
And also, you have just an amazing resume, both on stage and on screen. I was looking at everything from episodic television to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and
oh no, that's not me.
That's not you.
No, if you did an IMDb, the Tony, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Apparently, there's another, believe it or not, another Diane Vincent. But I will tell you, my television appearances are minimal, right? I've done several episodic, guest star episodics, but it's been a long while because I shifted and refocused back to theater, which is my true love, my true passion. And it just pays like a hobby, but I love it. I have not focused on camera for many years. So,
no.
But the Sgt. Pepper credit does not belong to me. Just so you know.
So on your IMDb, unfortunately, everything on my IMDb is true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but no.
Check it out.
No, but. It's funny you mentioned that because every time I watch the Tonys, there's always jokes about episodic television versus theater. Mm-hmm. And because the Tonys are, theater on television, but there's always some joke about, oh, would you like to do theater or would you like to make money?
Well, I've been fortunate to do both. I mean, I have made money in the theater. I've had, a long career of being a proud member of Actors Equity since 1988. And I've done a lot of, not production contracts yet, but I've done a lot of regional theater and have made, between Lucy and live theater, I've made a very good livelihood doing live performance, which I'm very grateful for, So, but again, back to the TV stuff, I didn't focus on it. If I told you my reel is on Kinescope, would it give you an idea? It's been a while since my last episodic was Scrubs. Okay, so we're going back. Okay. We're going back a ways. But
since I deal mostly in classic TV, Scrubs is still not yet.
Not quite.
I think not quite classic. I think it's brilliant, but I wouldn't call it classic just yet.
Not yet.
And, I'm the type of person, I'm very conservative in the use of the word classic or the term groundbreaking. I think it gets overused a lot, and
Yeah.
so I think one day I could say Scrubs is destined to be a classic, but perhaps. Yeah, I will. It's funny because shows like I Love Lucy. Yeah, you could say that. You could say classic and groundbreaking. But you've played Lucy Ricardo, but you didn't. You're working with audiences or individuals, and you are bantering with people who didn't get a script, and you do all the routine. I imagine people come up to you and just go, "Vitamin Benjamin," and just
oh yeah,
shout it out.
all the buzz, all the catchphrases. Where's Ricky? All these references. And yeah, we work without a script. I work without a script. I always say, oh, my writers aren't here anymore, so I'm on my own here. But people will certainly want to connect with you immediately, and they'll grab a catchphrase or a "honey, I'm home," or wah, or all those iconic sound bites. They will throw at me just to make that immediate connection, and then we go from there.
And then you also go to I keep saying Jamestown, which is located Jamestown, which is Lucille Ball's hometown.
Correct.
Also Lucy Ricardo's hometown, and
West Jamestown, which didn't exist, was Lucy Ricardo's hometown. But yes, Lucille Ball, Jamestown, and I've been there 25 times now.
So you have a whole facility dedicated to I Love Lucy, a theater, the Desi Lou Theater, and the Museum of Comedy.
Right. There's no Desi Lou Theater. It's called the Desi Lou Playhouse, which is a walkthrough exhibit housing replications of the sets, a lot of artifacts, memorabilia, awards, costumes. So that's the Desi Lou Playhouse. There is a Lucille Ball Little Theater in town named after her, and she actually did perform in that theater before she came to Hollywood as a youngster. Mm-hmm. And then there's the National Comedy Center, which is this huge multi-million-dollar extraordinary exhibit that was her dream to make Jamestown the epicenter of comedy, much like Cooperstown is to baseball. So Lucille Ball's wish was to do that, and she did it, and it's now a tourist destination. People came from all over the world to attend the Lucy Festival since 1991, but the National Comedy Center is fairly new. It's about 5 years now, and it is extraordinary, Tony. You've got to see it. I've been wanting to. Yeah. You need 3 days to see everything. It's just unbelievable. And we're talking about the history of comedy. So it's all the way back to the silent era up through, you have George Carlin exhibit and Carl Reiner and on and on and on. And it's just something to behold. And it was a real feather in their cap to make it happen. It was years in the making, and it put Jamestown big time on the map. Yeah.
That is amazing. Yeah, that you got to be in her hometown. I saw recently Louis Black, one of my favorite contemporary comedians.
He's on the board. Yeah, he's on the board of the National Comedy Center.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You have people like him that are involved. You mentioned George Carlin. I know Kelly Carlin donated a lot of George Carlin stuff, archives.
He did.
A friend of mine, Josh Mills, is in charge of both the Ernie Kovacs and Edie Adams estate, and they have brought stuff over there. I don't know if things are on loan or things have been, what's been donated. I know there's been stuff donated by the estate of Milton Berle and I'm sure Bob Hope as well.
You mentioned Ernie Kovacs. I have a quick little Edie Adams story for you. So several years ago, I was appearing at the Lucy. Back in those days, it was called Lucy Desi Days or just the Lucy Festival. Now it's called the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival. Anyway, I was there for the weekend, and I do a lot of events. Ranging from trivia contests to live stage performances to, appearances here and there. So one year, and they always try to bring in a headliner. And over the years, it's been many, many people who have worked with Lucille or who worked on the show. Sadly, we've lost a lot of these people. But one year, the headliner was Edie Adams, right?
Wow.
Well, she was scheduled to do the big event, the big Saturday night, 8 o'clock at the Civic Center. It's called the Reg Lanai Civic Center. It's their big theater in downtown. And I arrive on a Wednesday. The festival starts on Friday. They call me in and they say, Diane, Edie Adams cannot make it. This is like a classic, let's put on a show. Mm-hmm. So I had to literally in 24 hours come up with an hour show to fill in for Edie Adams. So thankfully that particular weekend I had with me Melody Thomas Scott, who is a huge supporter of the museum and the festival, huge Lucille Ball fan. You know Melody Thomas Scott from Young and Restless? Anyway, for you soap opera fans, she's a big diva on the show, like a Susan Lucci kind of. So it was her. She was in town for the weekend. Keith Thibodeau, the real
Little Ricky, yeah.
Bart Braverman, who played Giuseppe, you shine a shoe, I shine in your shoe. So
yes. She's on my birthday too. Yeah,
the little boy. He was there to do a Q&A. And then we had Wanda Clark, Lucille Ball's secretary. We had Elizabeth Edwards there, who was Lucy Arnaz's firsthand assistant and has published several books on Lucille. And then Tom Watson, who was the president of the We Love Lucy fan club and also has written books and is responsible for the DVDs that we enjoy in color and etc. So anyway, so we had all these people there. So what I did was, and I was also there with a very dear friend of mine. He's now passed away, Dan Mojica. And he was just there as a guest that weekend. By the way, Dan, quick sidebar, put together many seasons of Grinchmas at Universal Studios that you and I have something in common.
Yeah, we got something in common with that. Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, we had all these characters in town. So what we decided to do was put on a talent show and have all those people that I just mentioned as the panel. So think of it like before American Idol. Mm-hmm. So they were the judges, and we used the audience. Melody and I did a whole Lucy and Ethel thing opening. We wrote this dialogue, and it was very silly, where Melody wanted to pretend she was Ethel. It was her dream to be Ethel Mertz. Anyway, can I tell you, the show was phenomenal. The audience, they got so into it. They got up and we'd say, okay, what is your talent? They say, well, I can, I can do bird calls, or I can sing, or I can do an Elvis Presley. Anyway, it was very impromptu, very spontaneous. The show ended with Keith Thibodeau playing the drums. It was phenomenal. I'm just telling you, this Lucy Festival, I could go on and I could talk for weeks about my experiences at the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival. But that just gives you a little sample of what can happen in Jamestown. That
has been a trip I've been wanting to plan. I go to New York City often, but I do want to do. And I'm not a sports guy, but I do want to see Cooperstown, and I do want to go to Jamestown.
I do too.
And it's and up there, enjoy some Seneca apple juice and some Genesee beer and others. There is so much to New York State, and especially that part of the state.
It's beautiful. Yeah, she lived, Jamestown is by Lake Celeron and Chautauqua Lake. It's absolutely gorgeous.
I've driven up there so many times. I mean, and there's so much going on there, and people have a very specific view of New York, which is Manhattan. And I mean, I could spend a lot of time there too, and I love going there. But there's so much of New York State, especially that area between Corning, Elmira, Bath, all that. The wine country up there is pretty phenomenal too. Oh, yeah. I'm saying that as a Californian, and it's pretty amazing. But I mean, it's just, we get started over here, and we're just kind of going with the legacy of I Love Lucy. I mean, we could probably spend 10 hours talking about the 3-camera method that Desi came up with, or the idea of filming the show so you had something of really good quality that could be seen over and over again. I don't think Desi necessarily saw streaming services or Blu-ray discs in people's home, but he wanted something of quality. Yep. And then, so much of that legacy is the behind-the-scenes stuff and trying to get this show together. Which is just as important as Vita Vita Benjamin or
Bet.
having having a pie thrown at William Holden at the Brown Derby.
Which is one of my favorite. I get asked this question a lot. What's your favorite episode? And I have many, as many of the diehard fans do. Putting aside the obvious ones, Grape Stomping, Candy Factory, Vita Mita, I have to go with LA at Last, with William Holden, just because scene for scene, from the top of the episode to the end, scene for scene, there's so many gems, there's so many wonderful things that happen. And then I love the operetta. I know, because I'm a musical theater girl, so I love the show that goes wrong, Yeah. I love Ethel's Hometown. Again, the show that has to go on, but there's antics going on behind her. And I've recreated that one on stage quite a bit. I love the ballet, So I have so many favorites. It's hard to pick, but
yeah, somebody was asking me. It's so hard to pick an episode because I look at that as moments.
Yes.
I love the moments, and I love the scene at the Brown Derby, and I also just love seeing the Pontiac convertible down the 101.
Oh yes.
In the opening of that episode, because you never see the 101 that empty. At least in our lifetime. But you have the moment in the Brown Derby. You have the moment where she lights her nose on fire. So you have moments like that. But just one of my favorite. You and I have talked about it when they're in Paris and Lucy gets arrested for counterfeiting.
Yeah.
And
that. Oh, I know what moment you're going for. The translation.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, brilliant. And who's brilliant in that scene is Desi.
Yes.
He is, the man was, we can talk for days about how brilliant he was and what a pioneer and genius, and it never would have happened without him. But his acting was, he never got an Emmy. Can you believe that? I just don't think the man in his lifetime was honored and recognized for what he did as an actor. We can talk for days about his producing and his savvy and his, just ingenuity. But I think he was a wonderful actor,
I think he proved it also in the Long Trailer. People who studied comedy talked about how his work with props, especially the shower in the trailer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They said, he said he doesn't get enough credit for that.
No, and where did that come from, right? Lucille obviously had some training and worked with, Buster Keaton and this and that and the other, and Leela Rogers. She did have training, but Desi was just raw. It was just raw and natural, and where did it come from?
And I think a lot of it is because you look at like the Marx Brothers, who Lucy worked with.
Yeah,
all of them and especially Larry. Larry had a musical background. All of the Marx Brothers had a musical background, and I think that had an influence, the rhythm and timing in their comedy. And Desi's background in music, I think, also must have had his sense of rhythm, timing, and what worked.
Good point.
Because I would hear people bring that up, and I remember it being brought up a couple of times with, especially Harpo and Chico, that that musical background, that sense of timing was always.
That's perfect. A very good
point. And I think you probably know a lot of musical theater people that when they're doing comedies, that man, their timing is spot on, especially if they're doing physical stuff.
Well, look at Carol Burnett. There's a perfect example of her musicality, which is terrific, and then her natural sense of comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, Tony, but I think that's a really...
I think I think that probably has some origin to it. I had heard stories, and then I've heard contradictory stories, that, Lucy, was very good at following the script and taking direction, but she didn't necessarily know if something was funny. And a lot of times her writer, the one female writer, Madeline Poole Martin, would have to physically, she would have to be the guinea pig to see if the bit worked.
That's right.
Or Lucy does it so she could see it. Oh, okay. Or it's just, trust this is going to be funny. And then doing the show before a live audience, she was confirmed that this was funny. I also heard that Lucy Arnaz inherited her father's sense of timing that kind of the musicality.
Sure.
But
I think
Lucy,
yeah.
Lucy was such a perfectionist, and it's like, and she took direction very well. Said, "Do this; it will be hysterical," and she did it, and it, I think so much stuff exceeded expectations.
For sure, and what she would say, or what she's quoted as saying is, "I'm not funny. What I am is brave."
Yeah.
And another quote I believe was, "I'm not funny. I'm not a funny person. I just do funny things," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the exact quote.
But I would also remember Lucy in the later years being on a talk show as a guest.
Uh-huh.
And her timing and her wit was always spot on.
Yeah.
Her sitting, with the limitations of basically being on a sofa, next to a person at a desk, whether it was Johnny Carson or Joan Rivers or Dick Cavett. I thought her ability to do just witty banter but she was really good at that. Mm-hmm. I mean, she really did have a chance. And, I think it also helped that she comes on stage, everybody loves her.
Sure.
Yeah, but I thought she was very good at that. But the physical stuff that she did,
yeah,
especially stuff she did with Vivian Vance. I mean, just the gags.
Yeah.
But you talk, Desi in that translation scene, which I thought was brilliant.
Brilliant.
To have all those different languages go, and to take it to that farcical extreme was just so much fun. But then she has the moments calling Ricky in the hotel and saying, "I'm at the Bastille." It's like, it was, or thinking she's being arrested for, what?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, just her thinking that she's arrested because she put ketchup on escargot.
Right. Tony, do you know because, I mean, sometimes you I'm not surprised it's because you are the child of television, but do you know, in fact, every single episode of I Love Lucy?
I don't want to say yes, because I bet there might be one that I don't have on my radar. I've done that before, but I'm pretty confident I do. The other day I saw Star Trek that I never saw before, and I thought I saw every one of these. And there are other shows where once in a while, did that episode get pulled when I was a kid because you do see that sometimes, that the pilot episode gets buried somewhere, but it's on the DVD collection or something like that. You had that with Hogan's Heroes and That Girl and several other shows. I'm pretty positive I've seen every episode several times over. But it's still, to me, it's the moments. It is the moments. And I mean, we also have to look at it. She was the first pregnant woman on TV.
That's correct. Can't say the P word though.
You can't say pregnant, yeah. And even today,
I'm getting a lot of mileage out of one. I have to come up with a few pandemic jokes. When I'm out and about doing my thing out there in the park. Universal Studios, that is. So Lucy, sometimes you have to do a little time travel. You can't engage with people and not recognize that you are in fact in the here and now, but you're Lucy Ricardo. So I tell folks that it will come naturally out of conversation invariably, but the response is that, for example, today somebody asked me about, it came up that Lucy, when I'm Lucy, I would say I was the first woman on television to have a baby, and then oftentimes the person will respond, "Well, yeah, and you had twin beds, hardy hard. Yeah, well, Rick." So now I get to use the joke of that Lucy and Ricky were the first couple to socially distance. Our beds were 6 feet apart. I have a little bit of fun with that. And then the other little joke that I get to work into my repartee is that I have to wear my mask factor makeup because I have to wear the face covering when we're out in the park. But anyway, mask factor.
So you're basically Lucy from
the nose up. But that's, here's the thing. People love Lucy so much they'll take half of her. What would have been great is if I could do the loving cup walk around with the loving cup on my head all day, but who would, there'd be a.
Or you could do the reverse. You could have that white beard.
Or the beard or the veil, right? When she had the mustache. Oh well, but
yeah. So that it's just amazing what people remember from Lucy. Because so much, so many icons from that time period. People, it's not on their radar anymore, and it's kind of a shame. But Lucy surpasses all of that.
Here's the good news. Do you know, we've talked about the 70th anniversary. You know, this is a huge year for I Love Lucy and Lucille Ball, because not only did we just have her 70th anniversary, not everybody knew about that. TCM celebrated it by every Thursday night of this month. In fact, tonight they do a whole lineup of her films. There's a podcast called The Plot Thickens on TCM, and all this month, I think there's 10 episodes. Not to throw you competition, Tony, but there's a podcast all about Lucille and her life. Started last week, hosted by Ben Mankiewicz. You can listen to that. And then there's the Being the Ricardos film, which comes out December 10th, which is going to bring a whole new audience, perhaps, if people are intrigued with the star power that's involved. Aaron Sorkin, Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, will bring maybe a new consciousness to people who don't know the series. And then Amy Poehler and Ron Howard's production company are coming out with a documentary. So here we are 70 years later, and there's all this stuff going on, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's so nice to see that people appreciate this show. And
it's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. I mean, it is just as amazing behind the scenes as it is what we saw on camera.
So true.
It's the first time I saw somebody on TV. I saw a grown man that talked like my dad, and got just as mad like my dad. Ricky, yeah.
Your dad talked like Ricky?
A Puerto Rican accent, but not that different from a Cuban accent. And
honey.
And I mean, I think we saw on TV around that time people doing accents, but somebody who was basically being themselves and could not help but be themselves, and getting a lot of mileage out of mispronunciations, and also getting to be part of that culture that the temper and all of that, which I think once the show got established, those were all the elements that the viewers look forward to. And you can tell from some episodes, they're laughing before the punchline.
Yeah.
Which I think is the mark of a great comedy. You knew if there's going to be a cheap joke before Fred Mertz delivered the line.
Correct.
Yeah.
The irony about that, Tony, is that originally, Lucille had to sell the idea of Desi to the network, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't want it. They said the public will never accept you as a married couple, but we are married, blah, blah, blah. Look how much mileage the writers got out of that interracial, all of the nuances of his dialect, and look how much comedy gold they got out of that. Can you imagine? I mean,
but the idea that, people, and I think we still have the same problem with the networks, which explains why we have streaming services and other platforms to get shows, because there are still people at the network saying, oh, the company's not going to buy that. The country's not going to buy that. The people in Iowa are not going to buy that. Nobody's going to believe that this all-American redheaded girl is going to be married to this Cuban guy.
True.
Well, this all-American redheaded girl was married to this Cuban guy. But they also had to take their show on the road, do like a traveling vaudeville show, and show, look, the American people love us. Correct. They also had to put up they had to put up their own money to put this show together and say, okay, part of the deal, we'll put up half the money, but we get to keep the films.
You bet. Brilliant.
And that was brilliant. I mean, it was so brilliant. But just the idea, because back then, shows were done out of New York. They were broadcast. If you were in New York City and had a TV receiver, you got it. Anybody else, you would see a kinescope, which was,
You talked about that on your Dick Van Dyke segment.
Yes, we did. Yeah, and I got to tell you, we would not have the Dick Van Dyke Show. And Donna and I also talked about That Girl, and before that, I talked about Star Trek, and I think also Mission Impossible had a milestone. None of these shows would have happened if it wasn't for Desi Lou.
True.
I mean,
don't we?
Yeah, at one time in his Desi's stable of talent, you had Rod Serling and Aaron Spelling and Quinn Martin and Gene Roddenberry. All of these people were under contract with Desi Lou, and I think all these shows might not have been given a chance.
So
yeah, and
I love that Aaron Spelling was a 19-year-old gas station attendant on when they
in Benford, Tennessee.
Oh, I love the Ernie Ford episodes. I love them. They're ridiculous. I love them.
No, I love that they had a chance to introduce this character in a 2-part episode who was so out there.
So out there.
And and I think also him working with Desi was hysterical. I know a lot of. I love when Lucy pretended to be the wicked painted city woman to try to vamp him.
Vamp me some more. Yeah.
And when they sing "You All Come," and you have this talented Latin musician with a conga drum, and everybody's dressed as hillbilly. Yeah, exactly. He is totally out of his element in this musical number. He has absolutely no business being there, and they make so much fun of it until they do that last line, and Cousin Rick will yodel Babaloo, and then you could hear the rest of the orchestra playing in the background.
Yeah, and see there again, it points out to the mileage they got out of Desi's heritage and national, because you get that dichotomy of him trying to. How about in the Scottish episode, when he's trying to do a brogue with a Cuban, hilarious.
He also did
it. It's ridiculous.
When they did the Sweet Adeline with the barbershop quartet, and Fred even says, "I've never heard a Cuban sing barbershop," and he said, "I'll do it with an Irish accent." And I will try to recreate Desi singing, but it's just like when he gets to that one line, "Me darling," because you do have two cultures that roll their R's, and "Me darling," and just to try. That part is also just hysterical. The Bob Hope episode, not just the Nobody Loves the Ump number, which also you get to add that, but just in the locker room when Bob Hope has the ice pack on his, and Ricky's trying to explain and Bob has no idea what he's saying. And it's just like, you're trying to tell me something. But or just him trying to explain a situation to somebody, and somebody's head is ready to explode because they can't process his accent.
Hence the running joke, and they'll make fun of my English. That's English.
That's English. Or you didn't? No, I didn't.
Yeah, they got.
No, I don't. Yeah.
So much.
And how many times did you see a positive Latin role model 70 years ago on television? And then 10 years afterwards, and 10 years after that, and 10 years after that.
True, Tony. True.
I think it was.
True.
I think we weren't seeing a lot of those positive role models until you and I were adults. I mean, we may have had the occasional, episode where the high school principal or, something, might be, but to show somebody as a productive member of society. Yes, he was a musician, but he paid the rent.
Absolutely.
And it's also a time capsule of the time. It's
for sure.
It's timeless in some ways, but it does represent the time period. It's beautifully done. Also, just with the show and just looking back, the construction of this set, that you see behind me, is Also phenomenal.
Your living room and you remodeled.
This is how I live, and and then my kitchen looks like the Cramden's Brooklyn apartment.
I hope not.
I think my kitchen's bigger than the Cramden's Brooklyn apartment, but the fact that they were able to construct something like this, and they're filming with 3 cameras, they're using lighting that was used in movies, they were combining cinema and theater.
Yep. Well, the genius was Carl Freund. I never say it.
Yeah, who had painters paint. They couldn't get the lighting right. They painted the wall.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and the process of editing and all that, and that everybody else, would eventually follow their lead.
Yeah.
That they set a standard. Everybody else followed it. I do get a little impatient with people who want to judge it. Well, I don't like it because it's so, misogynistic. The husband won't let the wife work. It's like, well, if that's all you get out of the show, then you're not really watching.
No, because in the end, guess who gets her way? I mean, she
gets into the show.
You bet. She calls the shots.
But I think I imagine housewives in the 1950s sometimes felt a great sense of vindication with certain moments that Lucy would have for either Housewives of America or motherhood or, whatever was the equivalent of feminism in the time period.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. There is that one, I don't remember which episode it is, and I should know this, but there's one where he does spank her. But it's playful, but, it's still a little.
I'm thinking he did it twice.
He might have.
But only once to music.
Oh.
Because you're thinking of the one where she has all the toys and she's on the tricycle. And then there was another one where she had this cable and Fred was hoisting her up. So while Ricky's singing a song, and I don't remember the name of the song. When you're dancing and you're dangerously near me, I get ideas. I get ideas. And she's like doing like a high wire act behind him, and then goes back to sitting down.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't I Get Ideas, but I Get Ideas was with the dummy.
Oh yes.
But I know the one you're talking about where she does the high wire and he uses her hind end as a drum.
As a drum.
But
and he stops the music and then switches over to Babalu.
Right. But there's another one. But see, I liken her to Alice Cramden in that she has her come up and she finally does get what she wants. I mean, however she does, however manipulative or, but she gets her way. He's not the boss of her. So,
But you also got to know this character. You knew before the first commercial, Lucy was going to get her way. She was going to get into the show.
I mean, she had an allowance and everything.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, but
she had an allowance. Yes, Ricky and Fred were in the father's waiting room, or as Ricky called it, the waiting father's room.
Yes, he could not be there. That's true.
He could not be part of that. In fact, Lucy's only in the beginning of the episode. It's really.
That's right.
I think also, and I was thinking about this before we got together today. One of my favorite moments in that episode is Fred with Charles Lane. I think he was playing Mr. Stanley.
9 girls.
9 girls. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for Fred and Ethel and Ricky, because once Lucy's wheeled away in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Which is also a great moment. Ricky coming in the wheelchair and Lucy carrying the bag.
I love that moment too, Tony. I love anytime Charles Lane appeared was just,
Yeah, another great, the guy was almost 100.
I know.
He was almost 100. He did all of these shows. He did one thing, and he did it beautifully.
Absolutely.
And he was comfortable with it.
Right, and he was also one of those character actors like William Frawley, who always looked old. Like even if or William Demarest, when you look at their early work, you go, he's still old.
Yeah, I've looked at old movies that William Frawley was in, and I expected to see a guy with hair, and I expected him to be thinner, and it's like, it's Fred Mertz. It's Fred Mertz with a nicer suit.
And to think that William Frawley really campaigned for that job. He said to Desi, I want to work, man. You know, I need a job. I lost my earring. So a little costume malfunction. Thank God it was just my earring, Tony.
Yeah, Lucy got away with several wardrobe malfunctions, but it was usually like falling pantaloons or something.
She sure did.
Or ripping their dresses off in the friendship number.
I have recreated both of those numbers on stage, and that's been a whole heck of a lot of fun. Primarily in Jamestown when I do these live stage shows, and I have a fabulous Ethel Mertz. She lives in Dallas, Texas. Her name's Rhonda Medina. Rhonda used to work with me at Universal Studios.
There was an Ethel for a while.
Yeah, for a minute. We had an Ethel for a few years, and Rhonda started as Mae West, and then she transitioned into Ethel. And if you think about it, Vivian and Mae had similarities. You know, Vivian Vance, before she became Ethel Mertz, she was kind of a vamp. And so those two characters were kind of very close to home as far as Rhonda recreating them, and she's phenomenal at both. And then I had a wonderful actress named Roberta Wall who played with me for a summer or two. And then sadly, like many things, the character got cut, and I've been alone. But we've been able to recreate By the Light of the Silvery Moon on stage, and the friendship number live on stage, and that's a lot of fun. I love doing anything musical with Lucy, because I am a musical comedy girl. So anytime Diane, gets to sing badly as Lucy, I'll take it because it's part of what I do,
Of all the numbers, and I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Cuban Pete.
Yeah, I've done that one a lot too.
And by the way, I've seen the dress for that. That dress is phenomenal. I've seen it, up close on a mannequin. Sally Sweet dress. That is, I'm surprised they got away with that on television at the time.
Really? You think it was risque?
Yeah, well, I think Lucy had the legs, and I guess it's funny because you could show showgirls, in a number, and you could have the showgirls in it. But I'm surprised, that they let Lucy show off.
Well, all it was showing off was the leg, though. I mean, it was high collared. Everything there was no skin up here. It was just the leg. She did show.
So you could have leg, but no cleavage.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And she didn't have much of a cleavage anyway. She was very small busted, but she did show her legs in the ballet episode and other episodes. But the Sally Sweet costume is very, very faded now. It's almost silver. I don't know where you saw it, but it's at the museum in Jamestown.
Yeah. It used to be on display out here at Universal, and
yes, I'm not sure if it's the original or not, but yeah. And
it's an amazing costume when you see it up close. I mean, the work on that, and you can imagine.
Yeah.
So much costuming done at that time, because people celebrate like Bob Mackie and the stuff he did for the Carol Burnett show. But at least we got to see that in color, and the stuff for I Love Lucy, it's like, wow, so much work, and we see it in black and white, and for decades we would see it on a screen this big.
Well, and that's another reason for all you Lucy fans out there. If you want to see these things up close, you must visit the. We had for Tony. We had the exhibit at Universal for many years, and a lot of those collectibles, including the costumes and the awards and the Emmys and all those things, have been transferred over to Jamestown, and they're there, including other artifacts and other memorabilia,
including Lucy herself, and because Lucy was at Forest Lawn for
correct.
I always thought was strange that she had
location. Right.
Location. She had a view of Warner Brothers, And I thought that was strange because I'd known her for working at RKO, later Desilu, and MGM and Universal. And yeah, so she got, yeah, it would make more sense if she was buried at Hollywood Forever. She would have been right next door to Desilu. I know this is horribly morbid, but but she's back home in Jamestown.
She is, and that's part of the Lucy Town tour. When you take the 2-hour bus tour, they stop at her gravesite, and you can pay your respects. So,
and I'm sure a lot of people do, and I think a lot of people probably thank her. Yeah.
Oh yes, you bet.
And I'm glad that the legacy is being preserved and kept, and it is for a lot of people a full-time business to take care of. People who have had famous parents or grandparents, and then at least, the younger generation has to be in charge of that. And they are doing such a beautiful job preserving that and maintaining the integrity of that, and not trying to cash in on it left and right.
True.
Yeah, because
it's in good hands.
It is in good hands. It is in excellent hands, and it is such an amazing legacy. And it is so nice that the legacy keeps on. And
amen.
You can. It is funny, when I was a child discovering I Love Lucy, and somebody had said at that time that somewhere in the world right now somebody is watching an episode of I Love Lucy.
Absolutely true.
And I think at that time it was the only show that you could say that. I think there's probably a few more shows you could do that. But while we're talking, somebody is watching I Love Lucy on whatever platform. And I think, Disney wanted this, Desi wanted this thing to be, that people could enjoy this in the future. I don't know if we visualize 70 years into the future that people would enjoy this thing, but people are enjoying it, they're quoting it, they're loving it.
That's so funny you said Disney, because, people over the years have asked me ridiculous things. And as you can imagine, 26 years of portraying Lucy Ricardo. One time, one guy came up to me and said, where's Disney? He meant Disney. Where's Disney? And I said, he's down in Anaheim. Oh, I love that. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, just asking where Ricky is.
Who'd have thought, somewhere as we speak, every minute, every second of the day, and in 88 countries or something crazy like that, it's playing, and it goes on.
But the people that approach you as Lucy Ricardo, they come from all over the world, and they know who you are.
For the most part, there's certain countries, for one reason or the other. Don't ask me why. Germany, certain European countries, not too sure, but boy, is she big in Philippines and India, but certain like Scandinavian, like Norway, Sweden, they don't get it. They don't get the show. Switzerland, I don't know why, even though Lucy was in the Swiss Alps. Come on, But
another favorite moment, the Papa band playing La Cucaracha.
Oh my God. Not my favorite episode, but
I love that moment.
I know.
And I love Ricky's reaction to it.
Yeah, I hear your point.
Especially when they're rescued, and he says, yes, you could be in the show. And then they're playing it, and just his look, that look he has as he's walking out of that mountain cabin.
That was so realistic looking.
Yeah, it was just. Ricky Ricardo was somebody who knew when he was beat.
Oh, yeah.
And he had that look all the time, and it's so funny that he now has that look.
You bet.
And it's not Lucy.
Right.
He has to say, yes, you're in the show, and it's
yes, absolutely. And that that he, like what you said, he knows when he's been beat. Perfect callback to a number I just recreated a couple weeks ago on stage. Was songs in Witty Sayings. The tap, tap, tap. Lucy steals the punchline. And of course, at the end, Ricky says, I give up. What's the use? And he does. He throws in the towel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Did you hear about the fire at the shoe factory?
Right.
Yeah.
Balls were lost.
Lucy's like, I bet some heels started it.
Yeah.
No.
Tony.
Well, it's nice to have somebody who knows the stuff too, and it's fun to have these conversations. And just as
I hope I know a few things after 26 years. But even before I started portraying Lucy Ricardo, like you, as a kid, I watched the show all the time after school, and then invariably by a certain age.
I lived in Ohio. You lived in You were from Indiana originally,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
When I lived with my grandparents when I was very small in Defiance, Ohio, we get stations from Toledo and Fort Wayne, but we would have the Lucy show on in the afternoon,
right?
And I think Here's Lucy was beginning on network. I think it was ABC, right? But it wasn't until I moved out to LA when I discovered. At that time, it was Metro Media Television, Channel 11.
Right.
And after school, it would be like the Andy Griffith Show, That Girl, and I Love Lucy. And that's when I discovered I Love Lucy. And I'm going, oh, they look different. Now, for me, TV was always in black and white at that point. My grandparents didn't have color TV. My mom didn't have color TV originally. And so I'm watching it and I'm going, why is she calling Vivian Ethel? And
interesting. So you saw the first.
Yeah, I saw the other shows first, and then I saw I Love Lucy, and then I'm, going to my mom. He said, "Is he Puerto Rican?" And my mom's going, "No, he's Cuban." And I would hear him sing, and but it's like, oh wow, he's got an accent. He shifts into Spanish spontaneously, which my dad and a lot of other relatives did that. All of a sudden you would start off in one language, and sometimes the passions would go, and you would shift languages, my dad didn't break things or throw things, but he did. The temper did, get up there. But to see these characters, and at an early age, just to see what a well constructed, established. You knew what Lucy was about. You knew what Ricky was about. You knew what Ethel was about. You knew what Fred was about.
Yeah.
And just that you enjoyed them in the beginning. You enjoyed them becoming parents. You enjoyed them crossing the country and going to Hollywood. You enjoyed them going into Europe. And and it's like, oh, I bet you do this too. You channel surf. One comes up. Oh, I know this. I'm going to sit down and watch the rest of this episode.
Yeah. You get stuck. You can't turn it off.
Absolutely. You can't turn it off. You can't look away. You're waiting for that one joke. You're waiting for that one gag.
That is so
good.
And let us not. I'm sorry. I was just going to mention, let us not forget that the show has been such a healing force. Even today, as a matter of fact, talk to somebody who, and I hear this a lot, your show got me through cancer, got me through my pregnancy, got me, not me, but I'm a conduit, I'm a channel, but the show got them through big, challenges. And I know so many folks that I've met over the years who attribute I Love Lucy for getting them through these very, very challenging health issues. And I think that's extraordinary. I think that's just says everything about the value that I Love Lucy, aside from just bringing laughter to everyday people watching, but to actually help them heal. And that's really a marvelous thing. Yeah,
I think especially, entertainment and especially comedy has such a healing element. And,
absolutely.
You work with tourists, I've worked with tourists, and I remember one time somebody came to me and said, everyone around here, all they talk about is movie and television. Hasn't anything significant been done here? Don't you have anything?
Wow.
Exactly. You talk to people who it's like, dealing with illness or dealing with grief or something like that. And it's like, this show got me through it.
Yeah.
There are people who will say, I was ready to end it all. And then I watched this episode and it made me laugh and it made me reevaluate. So I mean, that's got to be part of the legacy too, where you weren't necessarily, you weren't necessarily expecting to be watching PBS, but you were expecting to get some good laughs and not just, oh, that's amusing. No, it's laugh out loud funny. Pain in the side laughter. That
and still, even after you've seen it umpteen times, you still have that response, which is, says everything.
Exactly. And I know we haven't said everything, and I'd hate to bring this conversation to a close, but I really enjoyed talking Lucy with you, Diane.
Likewise. We could do a marathon, and maybe
we could do a marathon, and I would love to talk to you about other stuff, because, we obviously have this love of Lucy, and you get to be Lucy.
I love Lucy.
Yeah.
I love her, but I also am in a debt of gratitude because she changed my life. I have enjoyed an incredible, extraordinary livelihood as a result, but it's just such an honor and a privilege to walk in those shoes and to share the passion with people like you who are helping to preserve the history and talk about it and, educate folks. And thank you for doing what you're doing with your podcast by keeping the history of television and talking about that and educating folks and sharing your passion with us. So I thank you, and thank you for having me as a guest.
Thank you. And I know as my first guest, I am so thrilled to have you as my first guest. I know it's not from I Love Lucy, but thank you for being a friend. By the way, she would have done a wonderful job as a guest star on that show, but I knew she never would have done it. No, I know. I think Lucy. She was still around during the
Golden Girls. Oh yeah.
She would have rocked that if they. I don't know if she would ever do it. I don't know if she was ever approached, but she would have rocked that
for sure.
Because she would have. Yeah. See, we still can't stop talking about her.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm thank you again for doing this. Listen to me. I want to chat with you some more in the future. If it's not about Lucy, it'll be something really cool. But yeah, so let me officially thank Diane Vincent over here, and please go check out everything that's available in Jamestown. If you are in that part of upstate New York, which I'm not getting anything from the Upstate New York Tourism Bureau.
I'm not either.
But it is such a beautiful part of New York State. You would, from even driving up to the venue, I am sure is such a beautiful drive.
Oh, it is.
And I have met some wonderful people up there when I've been up there in the past. But again, thank you, Diane. Listen to everything. If you're ever up there for the fest, please say hi to Lucy when you see her, or if you're at Universal, say hi to Lucy, and stay tuned.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.